What's beautiful about this tree model and just the ideas that we're talking about in general is it reminds us that we're involved in a big branching network of things happening, and there's all these influences that cannot all be going the way we want them to in order to really get where we want to go. Like, we're gonna have stuff that
Yeah,
goes weird,
yeah,
miscommunications that are necessary to give us the directions that we need. So that miscommunication you and I had there is actually useful for planting me in a new direction. The beauty of living in life without necessarily analyzing everything and just experiencing those emotions that come, the range of emotions. Flow is about a range of emotions, being able to move through them, not to reject certain ones and feel good all the time. So I don't think it's about feeling good in the synchronicities. It's about feeling free and flowing and open, heart open.
welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. We're going to have some good times today because our guest is a kind of rock and roll guy who's also a physicist, and more than that, a great and continuing synchronicity expert. He loves it, I love it, and I hope you will love how we love it together from our different perspectives. It's a pleasure to have Sky Nelson back on the show again. And
Hi,
let me
Bernie.
introduce. Hi, Sky.
Been a long time since I rock and roll.
Well, you can still get a little music going. That's good. That's good. You're still the Sky Nelson band. So let me tell you a little bit about Sky. He's Sky Nelson Isaac is a physicist and a prolific author whose research into the foundation of quantum mechanics and the structure of time informs his work on how people adapt, grow, and make meaning. His approach integrates rigorous science with real world insight to support personal and social transformation. So here we are once again, Sky, after many times together, um, and each of us advancing in our own particular ways and finding ways that we are finding common ground. And we'll find common ground, I want to tell our listeners, in recognizing the synchronicities can be useful not just for individuals, but for groups of varying proportion. And I think also for humanity as we are headed into our own suicidal course. So, Sky, let's start off with a very personal and very important synchronicity that you experienced with your daughter and teaching.
Uh, Thank you so much for the introduction, Bernie. It's great to be back in your show. And so this story that I want to tell first is about my daughter. It's always about my daughter. I come back to my family as the joy part of my life, and I'm blessed to be able to study synchronicity and do what I love, in that regard. And I keep finding the importance of my personal relationships, with my family, my extended family, and my friends and my students now. Let me tell you the story of how I got students. I was a teacher in 2001 to 2005 in a different town, public school teacher. And then I left it because it was a very hard job, and I did a bunch of other stuff and wrote some books and worked in software and played music. And then last year, my daughter started high school, but a year and a half ago. And she came back her first week of school and said, I asked how was her physics class? She has ninth grade physics, conceptual physics. I was like really curious. How's your teacher? She said, well, we have a long-term substitute. And my face went blank. And I looked to my wife and I said, I'm not taking that job. um, and then we went to back to school night, and I avoided the principal because I didn't want to get in a conversation about that position. But a part of me was knowing that the place I was in my life was like, that was that could be an important thing. I didn't want to do it at all because I didn't want to teach that class. But it was the same book I used when I taught 20 years before, same author.
Oh,
Same
Oh,
subject, same. I mean, the content was even better, like identical, but even more focused on what I do. So I knew how to teach the class like the back of my hand. I knew it was being handed to me. I could sense that synchronistically. And my daughter was in the class, but I was terrified because teaching was so hard for me in the past, and it was also hard to get out of once you start. You're in the career, you're committed. So I knew that that would be a real change of lifestyle, and took me about a month and a half of deciding. On my birthday, we went on a drive, my daughter and I. It happened to be my birthday, and I asked her if she would want me to step in and do any work for her classroom. So there's three options. Either I can not do anything, you have a long-term sub all year, or I can come in and do like labs once a week and just, as a volunteer, do hands-on stuff. Or I can come in and teach the class full time as your teacher. And to my incredible surprise, she said, "How about either two or three?" And so she wanted me in her classroom, and that was amazing. So I ended up taking the job, and now it's turned into this whole new chapter of my life, which has influenced everything else that I'm doing, giving me space to grow as a teacher and also as a writer, as a physicist, and the amount of learning and love I've gotten from my students is just blowing my mind. It's exactly what I needed.
you got exactly what you needed right when you needed it.
And I did not think
Uh,
so.
well, that's part of the fun of this whole business. You're presented a potential decision, and it's important to emphasize that it's still a free will thing. You still have to decide yourself. When you're presented an opportunity like this, will you take it or will you not? Synchronicities are point in a direction. They're suggestions. You don't have to take them. That's why it's so important what you emphasize, three possibility.
And that's why, because you and I share that knowledge, in my decision-making process, I was so hesitant to step in. But I thought to myself, well, what's the key? The key thing for me is my daughter being her teacher. That'll never happen again. I never expected that to happen in the first place. And it's a semester long class, so if I don't do it, but if I don't say now, like if I don't say yes this week, like in the next 2 days, they're going to find somebody else who will teach the class. I'll probably decide I want to go back to teaching anyway. Like there'll be some other thing that comes up that I need to. I'll take a job in a different school or in her school, but after she's graduated, finished the class, and I won't get that thing which is teaching her. So, in the end, it was that the potential of missing that special moment with her that made me say yes right then, and in that window of a couple of days.
How would you describe that impetus for that decision? It sounded like emotional. You listened to something emotional in yourself.
I projected forward into the future on the branches of the possible outcomes, and I said, I'm able to sort of parse apart what are the likely outcomes, and having it wasn't trivial to think about that situation with her. It's easy to think about, I can either take the job or I can't. But to realize that if I didn't take the job and then I ended up wanting to do that job anyway later, or, my wife's job ended and I suddenly needed a job. And that was, life is going to put me on that path if it's the right path for me. That's what went through my mind. Life is going
Ah,
to put me there. It's already trying. If I say no now, it's going to try again. But this time, there's a special treat, which is my daughter's involved. And so if I wait and I say no here, I'm going to end up doing this anyway, but I'm not going to get that. So enough experience has taught me to say yes the first time.
what you just described, we want to suggest to our people viewing us and our listeners that at a point of decision making like this, run the movies of the future.
Mhm.
Run the movies of the future. Be clear about what they look like. So you have a better idea, not just about the decision in the moment, but about the longer term consequences of that decision.
And I say saying yes the first time, but actually, honestly, I said no in 2005 when I left teaching, and life was probably wanting me to say yes at that time too. You're a teacher. That's what you do. So it's a long journey of times when I've said yes and no to these callings, and it keeps coming back in different ways.
Well, your daughter is the one that turned a corner on this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, to be able to teach her has been a wonderful experience for both of you.
Priceless. And just adding to that, that I know all her friends. I taught her friends also. So like my daughter's in high school and I happen to know her group of people, and not many people can say that about their kids in high
No,
school.
not many people can say that. So that added something to the weighing. And I'm going to still go to the movie of the future thing, that there will be no movie in the future of you are teaching your daughter, except now.
Right. Right. She's not going to take physics later. They don't offer it at this school later. And I mean, this is just an unusual situation. And so the way I think about this is called the Synchronicity-Tree is my new idea of how this works.
Not new.
Well, I've talked about retroactive determination of events. So how the choices we make in the present are not like immediately influencing the world around us. I'm not influencing you, Bernie, with my mind. I'm actually reaching into the past, and the past is adjustable.
Yeah,
And if the past is adjustable, we haven't observed it yet, then the decisions I make now are picking out those particular branches of the tree that I'm climbing to show me where I am on the tree, and other people's reality, like the job opening up for me, come into focus as I do that.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's one story with you, not just with your daughter, but actually with the school, because you got to know her friends and you got an experience of being able to be more confident as a teacher as you got such positive feedback from the students.
Yeah,
It's very important. Now, let's broaden the idea of synchronicity, helping with decision making in a broader context.
yeah. So the second year I taught, which is this past year, I started, I felt like I'd locked in at school. I was comfortable there. At one point, I was at the social gathering after school with three other teachers, and they were all my daughter's teachers. And I laughed and said, "You're all teaching my daughter right now." So not only did I know her friends, I knew her teachers, my colleagues. So that was delightful. And I decided to get involved with the school district. Um, I on Martin Luther King Day of this past year, I decided instead of going to Oakland, which is pretty far from me, to go to a rally, I stayed local and I did a march at the local El Cerrito rally for MLK Day to celebrate activism. And we marched to El Cerrito High School, which is where I teach, the school. And we gathered in the theater where I teach synchronistically. I didn't know we were doing that. And the superintendent of the school, of the district, spoke that day and mentioned what some of the challenges are with the district. And I got a chance to speak to her one on one and learn about that. And so I got involved thinking about how to be involved with the district, and ended up going to a board meeting on, I think, end of January. And I had thought about that for a while. I thought about going to a board meeting for a while, but this is the time I finally got it together to, get my butt down there and show up at the right time. And it's hard to get out the door, when you haven't committed to something yet. And I showed up in the middle of a meeting where they're voting on the biggest budget cuts they've had in a decade.
Wow.
So the timing that week and that day was precise. It was like, this is the moment that I'm witnessing, where there's this huge momentous thing happening for our community. 35,000 students in our community, or 25, something big. And it was right at this moment. I was showing up, and I knew that I was in the middle of something important. So I stayed around and I watched and observed, and I spoke up. I gave some comments because there's some comments allowed from the public. And from that moment forward, I was involved because I saw that this was important to the much bigger picture of my school, my daughter, my district, my students, my colleagues. And it was interesting to me to see this unfolding in my bigger community. I wanted to get involved in this way, and it felt really nourishing to me to be part of something. And it turns out that they had scheduled the vote for this budget cut a week before, but they hadn't had a quorum of board members show up. In other words, there was too many absences to be able to vote legally. So they postponed the vote a week. which is the week that I came. So there's this sense in which like my choice to go was lined up with the historical choices that were made to get me to have that experience in the reality that I ended up in. And I don't think of this as us, me changing the world, directly, but we're choosing our paths in the multiverse of all the possibilities, and we align ourselves with certain outcomes. We're not in charge or in control of things, but we are aligning ourselves with the outcomes that we're aligning ourselves with. And from that date forward, I started organizing and gathering people together to be part of a volunteer team. So now I have a team of over 100 parents and teachers and students that are all organized to build community in the district and work on these issues together.
From what I understand, the synchronicity was the delay in the vote that allowed you to get into the week later when the vote took place.
Yeah, yeah,
So the timing brought you in a way that you couldn't have had the vote been done before.
that's right. And I didn't mention that there was a back to school night the week before, and there was a moment where another teacher gathered all the parents together in the library that we could and said, there's these budget cuts happening, um, and there was a comment about Sky, can you build the network? And so and I just seen Moana too, which is all about building community and bringing the people together. So all these messages were in my mind about how do we make a change in the world right now. What the superintendent had told me at MLK Day was our biggest challenge is community engagement, parent engagement. And the problem with the budget has to do with student engagement, student attendance. So there's all these pieces that I'm sort of knitting together in my mind. This is all about community. And my role here is to build community. And I was put in the right places in the right times to be able to start doing that.
And somehow someone knew that by asking you to start building the community.
Right. Yeah. This teacher, my colleague, was like leading a conversation from the stage of this other back to school night and said, Sky, can you get a pen and paper and start? Are you gonna, you gonna do something with this? I said, yeah, I'm gonna do something with this.
You can do something with it. You're describing a kind of flow, but I think of waves in the flow where
Yeah.
you can ride that wave if you choose to.
Yeah.
And there, Sky, can you do it? The timing of the vote, the feeling growing up in you of
Yeah.
wanting to be more socially active and organize groups. These are coming together of
Yeah.
events with you in the center of it. And I think it's something you're quite familiar with. This isn't the first time this has happened to you, this sequence. But what's it feel like and how do you convey that to other people who don't quite have that experience?
Feels horrible. It feels like this tension between I want this and I just want to run away. But what I found is that I have to want it. It comes from my will is driving this. So I do want it. I do want a better world. I do want to get involved and be known for helping, for my work, thinking about synchronicity. It's all part of what I get too. And so there's this way in which if I back off, I know that I will lose the opportunity, like with my daughter and the school. So I have to want it. I have to want to work hard for my teaching position. And I have to want to say, it's a very creative process. The teacher says to me, do you want to start taking down some names? And I say, God, I'm gonna have to find like how to do that. I don't know how to do that. Whose names do I take? How do I write it down? There's nothing here for me to do that, but I'm gonna figure it out, right? And so then I spend the next month, after starting that process, going to stores and talking to people randomly and passing out flyers for the board meeting and getting their names down. And I mean, it was months and months of legwork that I
Yeah.
that I wanted, but I had to decide that I wanted that. And then as I wanted it, opportunity came up after opportunity to get involved. There was these a new superintendent was being hired, and there was 4 or 5 listening sessions where students and teachers from the district and parents were coming together. So I went to all of those. But again, it's like this sense of like I've got a favorite comedian who says, "Have you ever had someone says something to you that this is going to take a lot of my time?" And that moment where I walked into the board meeting and saw them doing budget cuts, I thought this is going to take a lot of my time. But I want it, and that's the ultimate thing. So it's having the intention and the will to follow through and say, this is the moment that I've been waiting for.
I know you have a Sky Nelson band background, and there's something musical as well as flowing. There's some particular rhythm that I'm hearing from you. It's like, here's this song, and I'm going to get into this song. It becomes
I
like an album uh, of of stuff, and you just got
like that.
inertia going, and that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, and when you're playing in a band, you hear stuff and it gives you ideas from other. You hear the other people play stuff and it gives you ideas and you go with it. And the feeling of being, I say it's this tension, but it's also this divine flow of when the teacher says to me, "Sky, are you going to write some of these names down?" I'm like, some part of me feels completely at peace because I realize this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm no longer searching. This is the action I need to take right now. And that's a really peaceful and lively feeling to be like, I'm no longer wondering should I be doing with myself right now? What's the next task? I'm really clear. Oh, I'm supposed to be organizing this group of people. There's a board meeting next week. I'm going to focus on getting people to that board meeting. And a lot of my life I spend uncertain, just in a sort of trying to find the purpose. And in those moments when I do know what the person's telling me to do, I have purpose.
And that's what I'm trying to help people do with synchronicity as a guide, an aid to finding purpose.
And in both of these cases, in that case and also with the school job offer, it did not feel comfortable. That's why I say it feels terrible. My filters, I talk a lot about filters, the way the experiences we've had in the past influence what we see in the future.
Yeah.
And I've got certain feelings and thoughts about teaching that makes me not want to do it and think it's not right for me. I've got certain feelings and thoughts about talking to people and strangers that make me feel really nervous about it and insecure. Why me? I'm not likable. And these filters really create a sense of negativity around the options, the opportunities that come.
Now, well,
Pushing,
that's a good phrase. These filters limit the number of options in
yeah,
front of you. That's an important idea. And these filters for you is this nobody likes me.
right. Yeah. So when I see that and then I'm being asked to like network all these people together and talk to strangers about, the only way to build a network of people that are going to support the school is to talk to people I don't know. I mean, it's a
Let
nightmare.
me see if I can follow that one. Okay, I get that one. Yeah, you got to talk with people you don't know, and that's not easy for most of us,
Right.
is starting conversations with people you don't know. Uh, There's something
It's a wonderful.
here,
I don't mean it's a nightmare.
there's something here about you, Sky Nelson Isaac, wanting to keep evolving
Mm.
personally.
Mhm.
And there's something in you that says, I need to have challenges that I don't want to do and want to do them if they fit right with what I'm thinking about the future.
Yeah.
And these challenges help me become more who I am.
Yeah. And expanding outward to the global, I've noticed I have a belief that the way this affects the global is that when we challenge ourselves personally to live our life the way that we can't change everything we want to around us, but we can change what we can change. We can become the best versions of ourselves who can speak or act or draw or teach or serve in different ways, the ways that we're meant to do. When we do that well for ourselves, that's reflected out in the world around us.
How does that work, Sky?
Well, maybe I should share the tree.
Okay.
So I'll share this picture of the Synchronicity-Tree. Oops, wrong button. Um, Here it is. And after many years of sharing this idea of retroactive action, retroactive event determination, I took a nap one day and out of the blue had this image of a tree circling back in on itself. And I want to
Let
spend
me
some
say, let
time.
me say, let me say that again. It's a beautiful image, but a tree circling back in on itself is an important part of what you're describing here. And I hadn't seen that when I looked at the image.
Hmm. So the roots are reaching back up to the branches.
Yes.
And the way this works, this is a dynamic illustration of a cycle that I would call the synchronicity cycle, or I call it the Synchronici-Tree. There's apples on the tree, which represent the fruit, the different, fruits of our work that are meaningful to us. And what's beautiful about time, and as a physicist, I subscribe to the reality that we have one reality. We are at the trunk of the tree. My reality is my reality because I'm an observer, and observers are the fundamental subjective reality. So I have my reality that I'm living from my perspective. That's what I'm sure of. So I'm sitting at the trunk of my tree right now. But as I look forward into the future at the choices I have in front of me that I haven't made yet, I've got lots of branches, lots of possible things I could do. I can go for the thing that's challenging and meaningful. I can go for the thing that's safe and easy. I can go for the thing that's, somewhere in between or some other direction. Something that's really not aligned for me. Like when I left teaching and I played music for a while and then I took a job as a software engineer. That was meaningful to me and it was useful. But in the end, it wasn't what I was drawn to do. So I worked for 7 years and then I found a way to change my life again. Again, challenging myself to do what's the next, getting clear on what it is that Sky is about. And so those are the branches that are available to me. And I don't know necessarily how to if I knew how to get on the branch I want to get onto, I would do it, right? I would say, I want to get on the book on the branch that where I'm an author or where I'm a parent or where, I'm rich or where I'm traveling or where I'm, safe. And, these are my goals, but I don't know how to get there because the choices in front of me are not clear. So the branches in front of us are not clear, and we move into the tree leaf area, the top of the tree, the canopy, and we don't know exactly where we are in the world. It's kind of a mess of information and choices. But we're moving along those branches. When we do something with ourselves, we make a choice, like um, for me to get involved with the school board, or to start teaching again. These are definitive choices about what I'm going to do with myself. That's a root. So the choices are like I'm choosing a new route to a new tree, circling around to the new version of the tree, which makes sense in life, right? Because we're choosing a new branching possible reality, a new tree for ourselves, the next moment in time, maybe the next day, the next year, whatever that next moment is. And so my choices are grabbing onto new roots on the next tree. And those,
It's funny I had to get straight a little bit. There's roots and there's roots. Uh,
yeah,
and there's the roots of the tree, and then there's roots that are
yeah,
pathways,
it's both.
and it's both. And I'm big on how same sound can have different meanings,
Hmm.
and somehow you just challenged that. So I had a little cough here because I didn't know which root you were talking about at first.
Homonyms. I used to be infatuated with homonyms when I was in fifth grade. Yeah, so I love that that just showed up in the theory. And so we'd make a choice and we end up on a route, taking a route, into the next moment of our lives. And here's the important part. I was sharing that we don't know what branch we're on. Right? We know what we're doing, what we're choosing. We don't know what it's going to lead to. We don't know what other opportunities are there. I didn't know when I was faced with the choice of taking the job at my school or not. I didn't know that I would end up having students telling me I was their favorite teacher ever. I didn't know that that would fill me up in a way that I've been needing for a long time to know that I had impacted people. I didn't know that my own emotional growth would be satisfied by being a mentor for these groups of people in a way that I wasn't getting in the rest of my life. And so I'm so glad that I made that choice because I couldn't see that coming. And yet it's been the most meaningful part of my life for the past 2 years. And what this tree is showing us is that we're blind to the decisions we're making in the moment, right? We do the best we can with choosing a branch and then choosing with moving along the branches and choosing a route, the next route. When I chose to take the job, all the things that were part of that path became real around me. The branches that that I had been following became real. So the reality around me sort of lined up into place and said, "Oh, you're going to choose to take this job as a teacher. Great. Here's the branch that comes from. All the things that comes from are things like these students are in your class next semester. These ones that you're going to be your new friends. These teachers are going to be your colleagues. This classroom is going to be your classroom. All those things fell into place. These experimental devices that you need are going to show up in your path in the cabinet that were hidden there for the last 10 years you didn't know
Mm.
about, but you needed them that day. All these things are going to fall into place as the branches that we were on already, but we didn't have access to, we didn't know. And so when we choose a root of the new tree, when we have free will to choose our root, we're actually collapsing all the past branches into the one that we are that leads to that root.
And when you see the equipment that's been there for 10 years that you need,
Yeah.
that is a marker of being in the flow.
Yeah, and that is, it's like me saying, "Oh, I chose this route to the next step of my path," and it comes along with a branch from the past that connected to it, where there's this person left behind this equipment for me,
Yeah.
and it's very reaffirming, right?
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
I use that all the time to trust. Like I can't tell you the number of times I've been like, "It's 5 o'clock. I got to go home tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. I need straws. I've got 10 straws. I need 30. Where am I going to get straws from? But I can't deal with it right now. I got to show up in the morning and find some straws. And I have a way. How likely is it that I'll find this? Pretty likely. Straws are a common item. It's not like I need
Yeah.
to find a graph thing or some device. It's like I'll find them. I just don't know where from. And so there's this sense of like knowing that by making a choice of the next route from a place of confidence and peace, inner peace and joy, rather than stress and tension and doubt, that these I know which things are likely to show up for my in my path and which are
Yeah.
not.
Things will show up when you need them. I think
Mm.
we've seen enough of the slide now. Uh, and I think that's important to know that when you get on that right route, and the roots come back to, I mean, it's so recursive, the roots and the roots, because the roots are coming back up onto
Yeah,
the tree. Uh,
yeah.
and that's somehow a metaphor for what you're just talking about. That what you're saying in a very straightforward way, I want to emphasize that once you get on that branch, that's the right branch for you, and you're confident in it and it feels right, you start getting signals that
Mhm.
this is the right way that I'm doing. So people often use, I mean, one of the prominent uses of synchronicity is I'm on the right path.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, as we said, you don't always feel good or right. You don't know necessarily based on your feelings because I have some filters that are saying like this is scary or maybe this is the wrong
What was
decision.
scary about finding the equipment?
Well, certainly it was scary to take the job in the first place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Finding the equipment is the anxiety of the day before when I don't know if I'll be ready for class the next day is really intense.
yeah.
Like I'll walk into class tomorrow. I won't have what I need. I have to make up something that we do. I have to spend 5 minutes with the students just milling around, losing control while I'm trying to pull my hair out, grabbing some worksheet that I haven't copied. And I've done that a lot. That's why I left. So I don't want to repeat those patterns. So trusting that I'll find the straws is a real trust.
Is a real trust. And it's trusting something and it's trusting Well, you
And
have a different names for it, but it's trusting something larger than yourself that is helping you on your path.
I always plant seeds. Like I send, okay, I'm going to send an email to my staff. Like, anybody have straws? You know, or I see someone in the hall and I'll just ask them, hey, do you have straws? I'm not going to abandon the idea, but I'm not going to take this precious moment where I have to go make dinner for my family and solve this little trivial problem. I'm going to trust that this is going to work out with enough effort from me that I just plant the seeds.
That's great. That's great. Now, earlier on at El Cerrito High School, you mentioned there was a stage and that
Mm.
you talked about synchronicity on that stage. Did I hear that right?
No, I haven't yet, but my gut is twisting because now I know that's going to happen next year.
Oh, it is.
Well, you just said that. So now it's in my mind.
So you saw the picture of it, and that
Yeah.
made it more real.
Well,
Yeah,
when you saying that, and it certainly aligns with the sense of me owning my place there at school in the community, and the knowing that I'm appreciated for what I do, and I'm sure people would love that. I just haven't thought of it. I'm involved politically. I'm involved as a teacher, and then to be involved as a thought leader and a creator would also be wonderful.
yeah, and that's one of your loves, really. It's the synchronicity idea.
Yeah,
You've been passionate about it, I know, for quite a long time.
20 years,
Uh,
and it's wonderful too because literally you saying that has given me this new path. Um, I do. One of the fun things about being a teacher is a lot of the parents know me through my book, right? They say, who's my child's teacher? They look me up and they're like, I love what you do. This is so cool. So those are the people that are going to show up to my new talk on the stage next year.
yeah, yeah, it's planting seeds and the flowers grow, and there you are with my hearing. I
Your
sometimes
seed, you
but
planted
I
that seed.
heard you say it and you didn't, but you did. And something I picked up and I kind of mumbled when you said it, and I thought that's what I heard. So actually, I think there was something in you that I heard that
Yeah.
you were not conscious of that came through to me because I saw the stage and I saw you on it talking
Hmm.
about synchronicity. It was
Hmm.
just a flash. And then you got it, and maybe you had it to begin with, but that's something that we'll never be able to know. But I have an ability sometimes to be telepathic with people on Zoom
Hmm.
and pick up stuff about them. So I'll say it was a collaborative effort because
Yeah.
I think I saw it in you.
And we're zooming out, to look at how does this affect society at bigger and
Yes.
bigger levels. And what's beautiful about this tree model and just the ideas that we're talking about in general is it reminds us that we're involved in a big branching network of things happening, and there's all these influences that cannot all be going the way we want them to in order to really get where we want to go. Like, we're gonna have stuff that
Yeah.
goes weird,
Yeah.
miscommunications that are necessary to give us the directions that we need. So that miscommunication you and I had there is actually useful for planting me in a new direction. And it reminds me to look at the rest of my life and say, when my parent or friend or, boss says something I don't like, or does something I don't like, and it turns me in a weird direction, or when something happens I don't like, a friend gets fired or I get fired, or, someone dies or something goes wrong, how does this affect my life in ways that I can't quite understand yet? That, the beauty of living in life without necessarily analyzing everything and just and experiencing those emotions that come, the range of emotions. Flow is about a range of emotions, being able to move through them, not to reject certain ones and feel good all the time. So I don't think it's about feeling good in the synchronicities. It's about feeling free and flowing and open, heart open.
And you called me Pollyanna. You call,
Yeah, I think that was something. Well, what was it? What was the case there? So
it
something went wrong.
was you couldn't be on the show yesterday, so yeah, yeah. And I said, well, maybe it's a good thing. And let's try another time. And that's when you call me Pollyanna. But that's what you preach, let me say, is to is that when things go bad, you try to go with them to see what the emotion might be that drives the new possibility and be open to that new possibility. And it turned out, Sky, I'm glad you couldn't do it yesterday. I had enough to do yesterday. Uh,
Yeah.
it was nice, and so often it happens that two people want to get together, but then one can't. But then it turns out to be good for the other person, and it was in this case with you and me.
Well, I'll just share that yesterday was the anniversary of 5 years since my nephew died, and he was one of my favorite people in the world. He was similar to me in his sort of outlook of experimentation, and it was tragic for my family. And so we get together every year on his birthday, and at the same hour of the day, we were gathering at the cemetery to have some songs and music, and it was very special. So I was like, this is not synchronicity in the sense of like, yay, let's go, align with life. Is like, this is frustrating and hard, um, and wish it wasn't happening this way. And yet, it's part of a bigger picture that was a very lovely day with my family, and I'm grateful for all of them. And I miss my
It's
my nephew.
Yes, and you missed your nephew. You got to feel that missing with a shared group, and
Yeah,
that's very, very important. So much more important. And as I'm saying, it was good for me that you couldn't do it at the
right.
time we agreed upon. And that to look for that silver lining or look for the option, I call it turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones, making something that you fall over, something that gives you a chance to go further. That's what happened.
Yeah,
I, and it was, you don't have all that planned this summer. And
right.
then, and then you said, this is the exact time that they have to go
Right.
to
I've
the
got I've got a
cemetery.
completely open schedule for the summers. I'm not teaching, and yeah, Thursday at 11 o'clock. Sure, that is the same window that they chose to do this service, and um, so there's a sense in which I called you Pollyanna because I laughed at your positive spin on it, and I'm like, I'm so frustrated with my schedule right now. It didn't have to be this difficult, but I was setting up my microphone today, and last week my niece, my wife's on my wife's side, asked if I could do some recording with her. She's like 6 or 7, and I said, sure, let's do that. So I brought my microphone to her grandparents' house. We set up a whole recording studio, and she was delighted. It was a really bonding, wonderful experience for Uncle Sky. And I left all the equipment there. So today I was like, oh, I don't have my regular mic, so I got to figure out something else. And I pulled out a mic stand. The story of this mic stand is it got left at a party last year just after I bought it, and I just got it back this year. I went to hook it up, and it had the wrong adapter, and I was like, I've been playing music for 45 years or something, and I've never seen this adapter before on my own equipment. So I couldn't hook up the mic, and I knew that anything I left to the last minute would get in my way. Indeed, at that last minute, I was screwing on a microphone before I called you. And it's funny to me because it's always that way. If I hadn't checked the internet would be down. If I hadn't have connected to the USB cord early, it would have not worked. And I'm just used to that with music as a professional. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't work, and it purposely doesn't work. Like the things you leave to the last minute don't work, and that's part of synchronicity in my view. You gotta think ahead, gotta plan for the next loop of the tree, the next route, and keep choosing proactively so that things do fall into place in the way you want them. Otherwise, they fall into place some other way, almost intentionally, and it feels personal.
It is personal. It's got a message to you,
Yeah.
which is plan ahead.
Yeah. Get your stuff together.
Get your stuff together. I used to see a little poster where somebody had written plan ahead with not enough room for the EAD at the end.
I love that. It reminds me of
Well,
the story of someone looking at the United States, and it's almost like somebody was asked to make a map of the United States and plan out 50 states and start from the left, and just the guy's like, yeah, there's plenty of room. I'll just make this state big on the left here, and time to get to the right, I was like, I need lots of more states here, and I got to fit them all into this tiny space and then make them all really small. Plan ahead.
Well, it is maps of Manhattan where that is still around, where Manhattan is the biggest thing, and the rest of the country is a lot smaller than it actually is. That's to convey a
Center
different
of the world.
another world outside of Manhattan in New York City. And you're writing a new book. You've got the manuscript um, pretty much done, or if done.
Yeah.
Um, and it's about polarity. And I'm also writing about polarity in a book I'm doing,
Mm,
Psychotherapy with Humanity. And
wonderful.
when I look at reality for us here on Earth, polarity is fundamental. It's all over the place, just black and white, dark and night, sun and day, male and female. There are all kinds of polarities right here on Earth. How are you addressing polarities?
Well, I think of, I spent a lot of time on the phone with volunteering for campaigns and for people on campaigning and for issues that I've campaigned for. One of them was what was originally Build Back Better in 2022, I think, became the Inflation Reduction Act. And the reason I got involved with that is because it was a window of opportunity to make change with climate and make meaningful investments in climate technology or green technology or just future ways of upgrading our infrastructure to prepare for that. And so I got involved making phone calls to different people in different states, Virginia, West Virginia, um, Arizona, swing states, and I talked to literally tens of thousands of people. And
Wow.
I took notes on a lot of these and really enjoy and learned a lot from talking to people that were different from me. You know, one of the things I discovered in writing this book is that I actually would rather find out that I'm wrong because when I find out I'm wrong, I'm less panicked about everyone else is wrong. You know, it's like when I think everyone else must be wrong, it's scary to think I'm the only person who understands what's going on here. And when I talked to this woman in West Virginia about, green energy and reducing carbon and all that, and she educated me on the fine points of coal and how there's different types of coal, and the economics of coal is quite complex, and we don't handle it right. And she was an environmentalist too, but she had a different perspective because of where she lived and what she knew. And so I have learned that when I talk to people one on one in these meaningful conversations, I don't have the same kind of polarization stance like me against them. I really understand them better and I learn things and I feel more at ease. And so when I look at what's happening in the world right now through my filters, whether it's the defunding of different programs and or the pulling away from the climate accords or any of the number of things that are happening that are I think intolerable for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the ending of DEI programs across the country.
Yeah.
Um, I also try to understand because I've talked to a lot of people who have different perspectives on this in various. It's not a polar thing, right? It's all these different angles on these issues, and they're usually tied to. I identified these three steps to sew up our repairs, our conversations that are ruptured, to repair them and sew them up. We have SEW. So understand that part of polarization is style, our personal style. One of the things that happens in conversations is we get pulled into how we like to think. Am I someone that thinks it's better to be tough and strong, as we're seeing in the government right now, like we're going to be tough in the world and display our strength, or am I someone who thinks it's better to be engaging and compatible?
Yeah.
And we see this in the playground in middle school, right? It's the
Oh,
same
yeah.
types of dynamics, and so
Yeah.
it's actually just style. I talked to this woman in West Virginia, and we're very similar in content, but actually different in style. So that's important. It sort of breaks down a wall when you realize it's just our way of talking is different. Our values of how we like to think are different. E is for emotions, hidden emotions. So the filters that I have might be blocking me from seeing what I'm attached to, or what is it, what's driving me to make these calls, or why do I think carbon and coal is a big deal in particular? How am I feeling dismissive of this other person because I have a particular fear in me about the situation? And in them too, why I talked to a guy who was against climate change investment, and it turns out he was really thinking about the way that that would impact government, the size of government. If you acknowledge that climate change is an issue, you acknowledge that the governments worldwide need to come together and do something big. And if you have a belief that government should be small, that's a real threat.
Yeah.
So it becomes hard to acknowledge even that climate change is an issue. You have to find a way to discredit it. But there's a hidden connection that they're making. So we need to see those hidden emotions, those hidden connections between issues that aren't really relevant necessarily, or can be solved with more nuanced approaches. And W is for wholeness, SEW. Look at the wholeness of the situation. And that can be the wholeness of the person. This person might believe something I don't believe, but they've got lots of things that they believe that we come from that are similar, lots of values in common, lots of values in common, most values in common in most cases. And so looking at the wholeness of the person in our relationship, also the wholeness of the situation, like seeing the whole life cycle of product creation and how we end the cost of our products on society, or the whole impact of layoffs and what that does to a community or to a
Yeah.
business, how that impacts the business in years to come, or day-to-day decisions at a business about the whole cycle of how what we do right now is going to affect what we have to do a year from now. When we see the whole cycle and that branching tree and look a little bit more in the future, like I did with my job, taking the job as a teacher, seeing what I would miss with my daughter if I didn't take it that week. All these nuances, seeing the whole journey of the whole path. And what I study, and I read about it in this book, is time as a whole. Time not just as a ticking clock in the present moment, but as a whole line or a timeline. And when you see this whole timeline of this branch turning into the next root as one big continuous flow of information and situations, you can start to make decisions that are a little more intentional and lead more effectively where you really want them to go, even if they lead through some uncomfortable things in the meantime.
The the root of the branch merges with the root of the tree. Then what?
Then you go back into the trunk. The roots lead back into the
Each,
trunk of the next tree, right? Each moment is a new tree.
each one. So the new pathway root affects the tree root in such a way that it changes the tree itself.
Yeah, and what I always had in my mind before was like we're in a tree, we go up into the future, there's these branches above us. We end up on one branch or another with the apple that we choose. We get some kind of good outcome, maybe. And then we go where from there? Well, we just keep going up. And we keep branching and branching and branching. It just gets wider and wider and more complex. And pretty
Yeah,
soon, broccoli, you just can't tell where you are. It's, way out there. And I thought, how can we make this timeless or, a cycle rather than just
a cycle. Yeah.
into the future? And so each of those branches loops back to some other tree. They're all going to new trees, right? New moments.
Oh, I didn't get that the new branches go to other trees because it
That's the
looked like
idea. Well, but the cycle, represented as a cycle, you bring it back to itself.
yeah.
It's a new tree each time.
Yeah, it's a new tree each time when it comes back
Yeah.
to itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought you're trying to get to. You're you're uh you're doing a whole transformation of the tree of life.
Yeah. Well, it's an apple tree, so it's got the biblical reference in there too, which I think is useful.
You got it. There's a few more metaphors in there too, but we're not going to have time to go through them. But I'm glad I connected the roots.
Well,
Uh,
the other metaphor is that I use in my TED talk, for instance, is the garden, right? When you create something from nothing, you're thinking like a reductionist. You've got nothing in the world. You got to add yourself to it. It's very, what is that? Left-brained, ego-driven. I got to insert myself to this situation to create my income or create a business or create a relationship. Versus when you create something from everything, you start with everything possible and you narrow it down through your choices. It's like walking through a garden where everything's already growing. You're just weeding out the things that don't fit. You don't have to plant the seeds that do fit. You have to weed out what doesn't fit. It's a
That's beautiful.
very different approach to
That's
life.
that's beautiful. Now I've got your tree better. Uh, now I've got the because I needed to hear that in the new tree, and it's all there.
Look how
Um,
many branches there are. There's just an infinity of branches up ahead of you, and it's all there. We're just
it's,
choosing.
you choose one, and then it comes back to change the tree again, and
Yeah,
there we got a life cycle or a cycle.
yeah,
And we could keep, and then that becomes a spiral, which I like a lot.
yeah,
I like these spirals. So, well,
yeah.
we need to be able to pause our conversation here, Sky, and it's been delightful.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been great.
it's been delightful. I'm glad you
Thank you for
liked
the
it.
opportunity to tell these stories. And I have one more quick story if you want to hear it about my daughter.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is
You
a few
love your
years ago.
daughter. You can't stop talking about her. So let's go for it.
We were riding our bikes home. This is maybe sixth or seventh grade, and she was doing a project at school on Japanese internment camps in World War II. And I live in El Cerrito, and we were riding home from the library on our bikes, and we usually go by this back road, and there was road work, so we had to take a turn to go by the main road, which is not fun with a kid on their bike, busy road. So I'm kind of tense and like, why is this happening? This is so frustrating. And then suddenly she stops and she says, "What's that on the floor?" It was a plaque on the sidewalk, embedded in the sidewalk, uh, dedicated to the internment of the Japanese Americans in El Cerrito that have been interned in camps here. And it turns out there was 10 or so plaques in that whole sidewalk that we'd never seen before outside the senior center that had this whole history of what she was working on for her class project. So we got off our bikes, we took pictures of all of them, we included it in her report, and she ended up really liking the process of the report and getting engaged with it. All because we had to
That's
take this alternate route home that we didn't like.
that's what we had just doing this. We had to take an alternate route to get together, and you had to do an alternate route, and look what came out of it. That's a beautiful way to end, that she could see her dad's synchronicity tree in action. So there's a song there, Sky, but I'm not gonna sing
we'll,
it. So
we'll do it together sometime.
I will do it together. So
Thanks, Bernie.
thanks. You're welcome. You're
Good to see
welcome.
you.